stood in firelight, sweltering, bloodstained on chest like map of violent new continent, felt cleansed, felt dark planet turn under my feet, and knew what cats know that makes them scream like babies at night. We gaze continually at the world, and it grows dull in our perceptions. Yet seen from another's vantage point, as if new, it may still take the breath away. We're all puppets, Laurie. I'm just a puppet who can see the strings. Once you realise what a joke everything is, being the comedian is the only thing that makes sense. None of you understand. I'm not locked up in here with you. You're locked up in here with me. Hello and welcome to the channel today. I'm Will and I'm going to be giving a review of the seminal graphic novel that I'm sure needs no introduction, that is Watchmen by Alan Moore. So I came across and read this because it is a text on my English literature list at university. And I absolutely loved the lecture that was on this, where the lecture leader, he really is very interesting. He was discussing how kind of the graphic novel has evolved over time and now it is gaining a lot of respect. He said how it would definitely not be on the syllabus 2 decades ago, or definitely not before then. And he said that people would have laughed if he said that he was going to give a lecture on Watchmen. But now it is respected, and it's because of text. Like, he also mentioned Mouse, which I really need to get to. And so at the core of Watchmen, there is a murder mystery. At the beginning, someone called the Comedian is killed, and we're not sure who has done it. We've got detectives looking into it, and we've got a group of people who were called the Watchmen, and they were basically vigilantes, and they became celebrities. They looked after the streets, but there were a few controversies, and as time went on, as we reached, I think, the 1970s, there was public unrest against them, who they just wanted to resort to the police instead of these vigilantes who seemed to got away with anything. And anything was under their jurisdiction, really. And so vigilantes are banned, they're outlawed. Most of them have retired, but a few have carried on illegally, such as Rorschach, who is the character we begin with, and he is looking at the death of this fellow Watchman who has killed the Comedian. And he believes that there is a killer looking for the Watchman, and he is targeting the ex-vigilantes. And so that is where we kind of kick off in here. We've got a murder mystery at the core of this story that links all these characters, all these former vigilantes together. But we also have a wider plot. There is a fear, which I think that it was very successful, Watchmen, because it kind of stemmed from that post-World War II anxiety of the nuclear threat. And so in Watchmen, we've got an alternate reality. America, they won the Vietnam War. There was a super being called Dr. Manhattan who, through some scientific kind of catastrophe, actually worked out to give him some superpowers, and so he's got super strength. He can like clone himself, and yeah, that's probably the only really fantastical element. Well, there's a few fantastical elements, but most of this is rooted in reality, but there's some parts that are outside the normal realms that we know today. And so yeah, Dr. Manhattan is present. He won the Vietnam War basically single-handedly. We're in an alternate reality, and World War III is brimming, and so that is a constant threat looming in the background of Watchmen. And that is something that kind of world conflict is always something that is kind of being discussed, isn't it? And it is always a present fear. And I think that's something that Watchmen obviously resonated with people in the 1980s, and it resonates with us now. But what the main reason I loved Watchmen was what I just said before, the inner story, the murder mystery, because in that we get to explore the lives of the Watchmen, and this is told in a non-linear, fragmented way. Where so the plot, I was going to say, if you've watched Philip Chase's and AP Canavan's discussions on kind of narrative and plot and how to analyse stories, I watched one that was talking about the difference between plot, narrative and story. And plot is the sequence of events. So the plot follows these characters, but the story is quite fragmented, where so we jump back in time a lot. We look at the memories of these characters. We even jump into what looks like the future at times, or what they believe is going to happen in the future. And so through this, we get a lot of tension. There's a lot of mysteries, a lot of questions. Why have certain members of the Watchmen fallen out? Why did they end? What happened to them? Why is this murder mystery happening? So many questions. And that kind of leads to, I guess I'm rambling. Sorry, I'm waffling a bit. But Alan Moore creates a very immersive world with these characters that really, really stand out. And it is very dark. A lot of these characters, it really is a character study, this. It is an examination of the human psyche. There are characters who we're convinced to really like or really dislike, or somewhere in the middle, but sometimes we know they're just not very good people. But then there will be a revelation, a memory from the past where something's revealed about them, or exploration of their childhood where suddenly so much makes sense. It may not mean that we forgive their current trespasses, but it gives us an understanding. It makes us empathize with them. And that is something that I think a lot of authors try and achieve, that kind of multi-dimensional view of characters, but it is so hard to actually successfully do. But Alan Moore definitely does do it in Watchmen, where you really understand these characters, their agendas and motivations, and by the end you're so torn, because this gets you to think, what would you do in that situation? Obviously I won't spoil the ending. I imagine most of you know what happens, but there's something at the end where it's a big philosophical question of which characters would you side with, who's in the right, who's in the wrong, and yeah, it's a big conundrum that you're not given an answer to. And so yeah, I really love the character exploration. It is very, very dark. Some bad things happen. And so yeah, this is not for the light of heart. I also tried watching the film adaptation of Zack Snyder made. I just didn't really click with it. This is rooted trying to feel real. So there's a lot of gritty, dark stuff. But then Zack Snyder comes in with his slow-mo, which slow-mo's all right, but it just was making everything, things that are very quick and like a murder scene. In this, it's very quick, efficient. It makes you fear this murderer who quickly chucks someone out the window. In the film, it's like a 5-minute slow-mo mental action sequence. And yeah, that's something that some people may enjoy, but because I just read this and I wanted to see kind of the visual representation of it, it wasn't for me. And Zack Snyder can be a bit hit or miss for me in general. And I think I've seen enough slow-mo. Maybe it was a lot of fun when Watchmen was one of his first big films. And yeah, it's probably quite groundbreaking. But now I've seen quite a few of his films. I've seen a lot of slow-mo. I don't need to see any more. But anyway, back to Watchmen. This is a graphic novel that is, as I said, it's got that wide, epic scope of kind of impending World War III. But in it, we've got the murder mystery. And so I think that's why in the final third, the stakes raise a lot, a huge amount. It becomes far more epic. And so it did lose me a bit there, because I loved how intimate the main story was and how these decisions, they were huge and felt very tense and dramatic for the individual characters, but it didn't affect the whole globe. Whereas by the end, it becomes much larger in scale. And so, yeah, it lost me a little bit there. But I say that the ending is brilliant. It manages to be completely satisfying. It feels so fitting for kind of the thematic exploration of Watchmen. Each character seems to have their moment to shine and really show what they stand for. And a lot of those are big surprises, twists and turns, but they all make sense. And as I said, the main thing is it feels fitting. And because of that, it feels satisfying. And so, yeah, whilst I wouldn't say Watchmen was perfect, I'd say that there are bits that are just so exceptional that I'd really highly recommend this to anyone who hasn't picked it up already. And so, yeah, that is my review of Watchmen. It's a seminal text that many have read and heard about. Somehow I hadn't really heard much about it until I mentioned, I mentioned in another video that I hadn't really heard of Watchmen before, and people in the comments were like, what? I must have been living under a rock. But yeah, I'm out of that rock now. I've read Watchmen, and yeah, I'm going to certainly be looking for more graphic novels along these lines. I love this reimagination of the superhero graphic novel where they were inspired by the comics of Superman originally, and I love that. And so they're inspired to put a cloak on and a mask themselves and to become vigilantes. And that is a question that it just seems that we've been fascinated by for so many years now. From Batman, is he in the right or the wrong as a vigilante? Basically, he's right. We agree Batman's right. But what if it was in the hands of someone who isn't as moral? It's the question of, should they allow Batman to be a vigilante? Because if they allow him, who else are they allowing? And so, yeah, that is very present in here. We've got kind of the pros and cons of the vigilantes. And I absolutely love how Alan Moore, he doesn't give us answers. He doesn't tell us what to think, what to believe. He gives us the options, and he gives the respect to the reader to make their own decisions. He obviously had his own kind of beliefs and thoughts that he kind of edges you towards, but as I said, he mostly leaves it open to you as the reader to make your own decision. And yeah, Watchmen, it is very thought-provoking, very engaging, very dark. It is a character study. These characters will remain in your head for days and weeks after you close the final page. And I'm very glad that Watchmen that my uni had Watchmen on their reading list. And so everyone, thank you so much for watching, and stay safe.